Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to be looking at Romans chapter 3, verses 1 down through 8. Remember the rock group Van Halen? They were famous because in their contract, when they would do a concert, they would have the contract would be like 20 pages long, all this legalese, fine print, what have you. But in the middle of it, they would have a stipulation that backstage there had to be a 5-pound bowl of M&Ms and all of the brown ones had to be removed. Now that sounds silly and it sounds like, oh, typical rock star just making ridiculous demands to see if they can get it. But it turns out there was actually a very good and very practical reason for them asking for a 5-pound bag of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed. It let them know whether or not the promoters had actually read the contract. See, the contract had all kinds of detailed specifications for lights and sounds, and they had to be done exactly right. If they didn't see the 5-pound bag of or bowl of M&Ms, they would know they didn't read the rest of the contract. See, the point is there was a good reason for what seems ridiculous at first. In today's passage, Paul is going to ask and answer some questions. Again, this is the straw man argument, where he sets up a straw man and argues with it. And honestly, the questions that Paul asks, well, frankly, they seem rather silly. But Paul had a good reason for asking these questions. And we're going to look for what that reason is today. So here we go. Let's look at our first part of this as Paul is arguing with his straw man there. Verse 1 says, "What advantage then is there in being a Jew, or what value is there in circumcision?" Paul is going to ask 4 questions here. And they're questions that people who disagree with him would be asking. So he brings them up and he answers them. And this first one deals with, well, what benefit is there to the Jew? If the Jew isn't saved by keeping the law of Moses and isn't saved by being circumcised and isn't saved by being born into the right family, the Jews, then what advantage is there? Before this, Paul had said that everybody needs Jesus. Even the Jews need Jesus. Okay, great. So naturally, the Jews who have been depending on the law all this time and on their position as Jews are going to have some questions about this. Let me read it again. What advantage is there then in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Hey, if salvation is by grace, not law, then the Jews might think that they've been wasting their times. God's chosen people. And now Paul is saying that being a Jew wouldn't save them and that some Gentiles who are not God's chosen people would be saved. If that's true, then there was no point, no purpose whatsoever in being a Jew, is there? Well, these next 3 questions all deal with what seem to be a loophole in the concept of grace. So Paul's already asked, hey, what advantage is there in being a Jew? We'll get back to that in a second, but look at these next 3 questions, verses 3 down through 8. What if some were unfaithful? Will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God, he's asking here, okay, you were saved by grace, but what if some people have still sinned? Does that nullify their salvation? Not at all. Let God be true and every human being a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness, here's the next question, number 3. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. Certainly not. If that were so, how could God judge the world? Hey, our sin makes God look better. Well, why do we sin at all? I mean, it's God made us this way, so is it really our fault? Verse 7. Some might argue, if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? Why not say, as some slanderously claim that we do, let us do evil that good may result? Their condemnation is just. Right, and there's the last of the silly questions. Hey, if my sin makes God's righteousness shine that much brighter, then my sin's a good thing, isn't it? Right. These are the silly questions. If God gives us grace, it means he forgives all of our sins. Is that good of God? Yeah. Grace makes God look good. So when we sin, we're giving God a chance to look good. You're welcome, God. This is right up there with, hey, by littering, I'm keeping the garbage men in a job. By committing crimes, I'm helping the police keep their job. Now remember, these are questions that somebody who doesn't believe in grace, who doesn't follow Jesus, might come up with. These questions are designed to make Paul look ridiculous and to get people to start saying, you know what, maybe I'll go check out the law after all. All right, if that's the case, if these are questions that the other side is going to be asking, then why is Paul bringing them up? Well, to find out why, tune in next time. Till then, have a great day.